thoughtful, but you don't want somebody to come back later and say, why did you say that? That's not what I meant. What were you doing? You want a double blind. You don't know the author, and the author does not know you. Please be aware of the deadlines. Deadlines are very important, and you want to keep in the queue for the next available publication. Larger publishing houses, if it's digital, can move faster, but if it's print, move very slowly, so you don't want to miss a deadline. Then you want to know, how many are you in reviewing? Are you the only one? Will you be one of three? Usually there's about 3 to 5, so it might take more or less time to review for this manuscript to have a final decision, because if you're one of 5, then you won't know for a long time. If you're one of 3, then you'll know a little bit quicker, but it's just good to keep track of, did they get my review? Did they agree with my review? Where is that manuscript in it? Ask the provider, how much detail does that manuscript need? Do you just need to give a summary? Do you need to give actual detailed information? Do you need to provide feedback to the author? All of those things take more time rather than less time. If you need to provide more detail, please make sure the deadline gives you enough time to read that manuscript, to read that book, to read that volume, enough so that you can make notes to yourself and give thoughtful comments. Then ask the editor who has asked you to review, how many times will you review this? Will you review it once and never see it again? Okay. Will you review it more than once? If asked to revise and resubmit, then you want to make sure that you have time for repeated review. Then look at that manuscript. Just look at the title. Are you familiar with that title? Then think, this field is so small. I think I know this author. In a large field, a really large field, it's less likely you will know the author. But in a small field of experts, you might say, oh, I know that author. I have heard that presentation from which this manuscript has come. That means then that you must contact the editor and say, I know this author. I know this work because I have heard this in a presentation, or we have collaborated in the same organization. Make sure that that is acceptable to the publisher if you find out you do know the author because the field is so well known to you. Then ask yourself, can I read it? Like, is it written in a language I can understand? If you understand more than one language, can you read the languages? Can you work with all these languages? If it isn't, do you have translations for which you can make good evaluations? And then ask yourself, can you make insightful and constructive comments? You don't want to be critical. You want to be constructive. So even if you hate the thing, even if the thing is badly organized, it's not written well at all, it makes no sense, you want to provide constructive evaluation. Can you do that? It's perfectly fine to say, I'm sorry, I don't understand a thing about this, and I thought I was well versed in whatever topic it was, but I find that I am not, and I'm just going to have to decline with regretful thanks. That's much better than trying to muddle your way through and not providing insightful and constructive comments. By constructive, I mean here a critique. A critique here is a detailed analysis. That is, you're analyzing, what is the literature review like? What are the works that this is based on? What's the theoretical foundation? You are looking at the previous scholarship in which it is situated. You are looking at the methodology. How was the data collected? Now, I'm talking qualitative here. It is not my place to say anything about quantitative methods, so just remember that for me. Looking at the methodology, what are the methods, the techniques by which the data has been collected and analyzed? Does it make logical sense? Do the results look like interesting and valuable results? You are making an assessment on what you know, and the only thing you know is what you see in that manuscript. Yes, you have your own background, but a lot of people who are going to read this article just by looking at the abstract and at the title are not going to have your background. And what you want to do is make sure that that manuscript has enough for anybody to be interested in it. If the manuscript is just for experts, make sure you note that in your assessment. This is just for the expert scholar. If it's for everyone, make sure that you know that everyone can read it. Your assessment will indicate the strengths of this article. What are its contributions to the field? What are its significant points that could be used in an expanded field of interest, not just the one little expert field that might take it for granted? You might indicate areas of improvement. Where could it be expanded or extended? Or what other areas can you see that would be helpful for it? Then you might add suggestions. Maybe you would like to reorganize it. Maybe you have some suggestions for vocabulary that's better, or scholars to look at, which would enhance the analysis of the results. All of those are for the benefit of the unknown author or for the benefit of the editor to make sure that an evaluation is forthcoming for the author that is based on what is a professional and a diligent and a courteous evaluation. What you don't want to provide is a criticism, and here criticism is that popular term just for disapproval. You just think this is awful and I don't like it and it's all wrong, and that's not helpful. You might say, somebody who is obviously an undergraduate wrote this. Okay, that's not helpful. What's helpful is that the tone or the register needs to be more formal. Make helpful suggestions. Indicate the points where the author did get information correct. Suggest areas of improvement. Don't ever disapprove. You may tell just the editor that this is not acceptable as is. It will need more revision, but you will never give comments to the author which just say, "Are you an undergraduate? This is bad." You will just provide helpful comments. You will always keep in contact with the publisher, indicating your progress. So you will receive the manuscript. You will say, "I have received, with thanks, your manuscript on June 27th, 2025. I will review the manuscript within 8 weeks," or whatever you want, whatever the publisher says, and whatever you feel is a good timeline. Remember, if you need detailed feedback, you need more time. If it's just a yes or no, yes, move forward, no, don't move forward, then you can have less time. Always inform the publisher of any conflicts of interest. If you are one of the authors mentioned in the manuscript, oh, good for you. That means other people are reading your work, but you do want to make sure that the publisher knows, I am one of the authors mentioned. And so I don't want to make it sound like, oh, this is great because I'm in it and everybody loves me. So this is obviously going to be the best manuscript ever because I'm in it. No, keep it calm and just mention that. Then, are you a paid consultant for the topic of the manuscript? That is, did a publishing house pay you to promote a certain topic, and here's a manuscript in that topic? Make sure the editor knows that. Then, can you keep that deadline? Yes, you can keep that deadline. Turn it in as soon as you're finished. Publishers love people who can turn in on deadline. If the answer is no, you can't, figure out, do you need more time or will you never have enough time? Tell the publisher that you are not on task. Then prepare that evaluation. The publisher will indicate what recommendation you should have. How many levels do you need to provide of recommendation? Usually the recommendations go like this: accept, accept with revisions, revise and resubmit, reject. And so depending on how much feedback the author or the publisher would like for the author, then the end result, the conclusion is accept it with some minor revisions, revise it, and then resubmit. Here's where you might be able to read it again or not. And then the answer is no. It is not the right venue. It is not the right topic. It's just not done properly or with the right techniques in mind. Be constructive, but also be very truthful. Make sure that your authorship, that is your reviewing status, is not identifiable. If you suggest, well, I think you should read Cole's 2025. I think you should read Cole's 2023. I think you should read Cole. What is the author going to think? Who is this Cole's person? Make sure that you're not identifiable. Then make sure you return to the publisher the formatting and the submission guidelines as they need. It can't just be double spaced in any font you want. It can't just have any kind of bibliography you think is good. No, make sure you're following the journal deadlines, the publisher's guidelines, the publisher's formatting, because they will use that as well. And it indicates your professionalism. All right, that's the end of part one. You've been asked to review. Now let's go on what you think you will do as a book submitter, a submission for a manuscript. You can submit a book, a journal article, or a book-length publication. Remember, here's one very important ethical detail. One manuscript, one publishing house at a time. Do not, under any circumstances, say, well, I'll turn it into 5 people, 5 publishing houses, and whoever wants me the most will be the first to. No, one at a time. So what you're doing is making sure that you are in a cycle that gets you good results. You're creating it, academic, you're getting it evaluated, you're publishing it, that's the great part, and then disseminating, you're finding out how your book, your manuscript, your article, whatever it is, will be disseminated. And then you will use that for your own recommendations. And then here's where the publisher comes in. You will be cited and you will be on the radar of the publishing house as someone who knows how to publish and is contributing to the field. So first off, a book review. If you're a reviewer, then you've known what a book review is like. And now, if you have a book that you think is really good that you'd like to review, not your own, you never review your own work, you can turn in a cold book review. That's not recommended. Cold book review means you just give to the publisher this book review and go, I did this really great thing and I think you're going to love it. Publishers don't really do that. They don't really like it. They'll say, thank you very much. Oh, we're not interested. If you've been invited to submit a book review, and usually a website has a list of works that have been incoming, and you can ask the publishing house, may I review this book? May I review this volume? May I review this? Then they will tell you which one you can. Verify if you're reviewing for a book notice, a book review, or a book length article, and make sure you know the word limit, excuse me. Following all the style guidelines and deadlines, you are submitting a manuscript, not cold, but ones that have been verified as, yes, we would like you to. You could wait as long as 6 months. You work on it as hard as you can. The editor gives you a deadline. The editorial board gives you a deadline. Good. You won't get it in right away. It will take some time to evaluate. The editorial board will evaluate it. Then it will be published. So you could wait as long as 6 months. If you're working on a journal, on a manuscript for a journal, an article, ask yourself, is this journal one which I can see my work in it? Does it align with the other journal articles in there? Is it within the scope of the currently published? Is it my original research that's contributing to this, or is it a library compilation? Journals take both, but you have to determine what that area is. Am I familiar with the previous research on that topic? That's what you ask yourself. And then absolutely, some journals say, sorry, we won't look at your manuscript until you have put it in the style that we prefer. They won't even look at it. So make sure you follow those styles. And it is a pain to have one journal say, no, thank you. Then you have to rearrange all the style for the next journal, and they have to rearrange all the style for the next journal. Fine, that's fine. That's part of the publishing process. Almost everybody revises at least once and possibly more. Only established scholars can go and say, here's my manuscript, do with it what you will. I'm not interested anymore. I'm moving on to the next thing. The most famous person for that is Noam Chomsky. He just said, here's a manuscript. Here, you do something with it. I don't care anymore. So he had an editorial staff just for himself that worked on his articles for himself. You don't have that luxury. So you will revise and resubmit. You will revise with acceptance. You will be rejected and revise again. Hopefully you'll get some good feedback, but just be prepared to revise. There's no shame in revising it. If you're publishing in a print journal, a journal that has both print and digital, then you will need 2 years for print. That is a very much longer time because they want it to be perfect. There's no take backs once it's published. And for digital, it could be as much as a year because they can take it back, revise it, and put it back in. But for print, it is a very long time. And then if you're submitting for a book, okay, that's the most rigorous review process. That's the one with the most amount of review attached to it because the publisher is investing the most amount of money into this publication. So here, remember what I said, if the publisher wants you to pay for the publication of the book, think very carefully. The publishing editor will consider, what is the content of this book? Is it a standard to which we adhere in this publishing house? The more international, the more respected the publisher, the more scrutiny your manuscript will get. Then, of course, because international publishers, they have to make money. They're not charities. They will always ask, is there a market for this book? Is there a place where it can go in our history of book publishing where it fits nicely? It has to make money for them. It has to be able to be marketed to the right people to get buyers, libraries, institutions, organizations, and individual scholars. So if the editor says yes to all of these, the content is what we want, there is a market, it's so exciting to see this new scholar, that would be you, and this new scholar fill this emerging gap, it will sell. It will sell wherever we have our publishing houses. Good. Then it goes to the review process. Several expert reviewers will evaluate that manuscript. For books, it will be more established scholars. For monographs, it will be established scholars. If you have the smaller the venue, the more you will likely have new scholars, but you will get good results from reputable publishing houses. The editorial board then takes the recommendations from the reviewers, usually 3, sometimes 5 if you have a really long manuscript, and makes a recommendation to the editorial board. What the reviewers say and what the editorial board decide don't necessarily coincide because remember, the editorial board also makes decisions on marketability. Reviewers never consider marketability. Will this sell millions of copies? Reviewers don't care about that. They care about the content. You may be asked to, you might have approved fully with just minor stylistic changes. Great. You might have to have some revisions, additions, deletions, modifications. They'll always give you deadlines, which you will follow if you want it to be published. You might have to revise and resubmit it. They're not saying no, but they're saying no to this version of it. So you might have to rework it. Here's the thing. It's your manuscript. It's your intellectual property. You may agree or you may decline and withdraw your submission. If you decline, you will be very professional. You will say thank you, but I believe no. You may say yes and ask for a deadline. Though and usually with revise and resubmit, there's no deadline because they want you to redo it very nicely before you do it again. And then they might reject you. It's okay. Everybody gets rejected. You may ask for feedback as to why it's been rejected. It might not be forthcoming. It might just be as simple as we can't sell this. This is not going to be, we can't, there's no market for this. Okay, that's fine. If you get accepted, let's say when you get accepted, the editor will send you a contract. Here's where you might pay a subvention. A subvention says this book needs to have some financial investment on your part, the author's part. Usually some university presses do that because they're not rich. And if you have maps, color maps, that's going to take a lot of extra money. If you have foldouts, if you want hard copies, like hard binding, called perfect binding, that's going to take a lot of extra money. And that financial investment on your part is called a subvention. Decide how much you can spend on a subvention. It could be thousands of dollars. You decide. What's the deadline? Who decides on the title and the book cover? You? Do you get input? It's your intellectual property. You should, but you also have to recognize that the editorial house is going to pay. Who approves of the publicity? Who gives permission for fair use? And then you might have to wait up to 4 years for print, maybe 2 years for digital. So there's the end of my talk about what to do when you are a reviewer and when you get reviewed. I'm perfectly happy. We have a few minutes for discussion and for questions that you might have. And so I would like to certainly talk to you about what you think, what you have concerns about. I'll help you as much as I can. And you can see my email down below here. I'd be happy to talk to you in person if there's something I can't answer right now, or the answer is much more detailed and we have other people who would like to have answers as well. So be sure to take down my email. I'm more than happy to talk to you, to correspond with you. I won't evaluate manuscripts for which I have no expertise. So if you are not in Hispanic sociolinguistics or in American English dialectology, then I just don't have the expertise to help you with content. And so I'll send you to people I do know. But otherwise, I'm happy to correspond with you as much as I'm able. Thank you so much to Dr. Brimo and to Ms. La Liberté. And I'll keep my screen up, I guess, in case you want me to go back to a certain slide, or I'll stop sharing, just depending on what you all think.
Yeah, please put any questions you have in the chat. We have a couple questions from the live stream that we can start with.
Good.
So you may have touched on this, so you might need to go back to another slide, but the question is around the key elements editors typically expect to see from a high quality peer review, especially if they're early career researchers.
Yes, let's see. Let me go back here. So here I think is what they were looking at. Yes, so you're critiquing. So the comments are always going to be constructive, right? You're always going to be helpful, professional. You're always going to be courteous and diligent. So a critique says, here's what's good about this manuscript. Here's what's good about this that I think are really helpful points that the author, whoever that author is, can build upon. Also make sure that you give areas for improvement. Where could this manuscript be expanded or extended? What other previous research might this author look at? Here's where your expertise comes in, your experience. Make suggestions. Maybe it needs to be reorganized a little bit. Maybe it needs to have more discussion and less methodology. I know young scholars, the very youngest scholars, love to tell all about the process of how they worked, what they did in every step of the way. But really, the most important part are the results and the discussion. And maybe that's what you should focus on for suggestions for that author. Where can the discussion be expanded? Where can be the discussion really highlight the significance of the strengths of that manuscript? Even if you think that that manuscript ought to be rejected for that journal, you can still be positive about it and say, this manuscript is it has a lot of potential. It should be shared, but it just does not align with the current research in this journal. That's useful. The editorial board will be thankful that you did that. I hope that answered your question. I hope that's the right slide.
Absolutely. And I'm receiving a few requests for the slides. Is this something that you're comfortable sharing or?
Absolutely. All you have to do is mention me. You just have to mention that it's my work, but I will absolutely give it to Dr. Brimo, and he can distribute it as he sees fit. And then just mention that it's mine. That's all I ask. Use it as wherever you please.
Perfect. Okay, we will include that with the recording. So you talked a little bit about some red flags in terms of people asking you to pay, but are there any other ways that we can detect predatory journals so that we can avoid publishing with them?
Yeah, let's go, oh, let's see, maybe I'll be able to go forward. Yeah, a predatory journal will always say, oh, it looks wonderful just the way it is. No, I just don't see a young scholar. Okay, I'm, I guess, an established scholar in some things, but if I've had to revise more than once, I just have never once have I had someone say, just exactly the way it is, don't change a word. No, it, there's always going to be somebody evaluating it, and you want that critique. And so a predatory journal will just say, it's wonderful just like it is, and we don't want you to do a thing to it. And then you have to wonder, why not? Are you in a hurry? Like, is there some deadline you're making to make money? And so here, minor stylistic changes, but just as is, no, no. Approve with revisions, that's the most common. Revise and resubmit, that's the second most common. They're interested in the topic, the editorial board is interested in the topic, but it's not quite right yet. And so I just think, and then of course, number one is you can pay yourself, called self-publishing. You can pay and we'll publish it for you in any way you like. Oh, that's not really reputable. And so you can publish it yourself. Yes, please do. But I don't think that's the way that's going to get you into reputable academic circles. So just be careful of people who are too hasty, people who want too much money, and people who who are careless with your manuscript. That makes sense? I hope
Definitely.
that's
Great.
I hope
Yeah.
that's a good enough answer. I'm happy to discuss more, but I just don't think that, especially now digital, where people just put up anything at any moment, and then it just looks terrible and it's not right. And then it drags the author down as well as that publisher. But of course, the publisher doesn't care. The publisher's in it for the money. And so that's why you, the author, protect your intellectual property. It's your intellectual property. That means you guard it. You
Mm.
curate it. You take care of it. It's your work. You don't want it besmirched by any predatory press.
Mm, absolutely. Okay, great advice. I have another one around actually declining to review
Oh, yes.
journals. So, is it professional to decline, especially if the area isn't related to something you have expertise in? And what is typically the reaction of the publisher in that case?
Now here's where um, the revise and resubmit substantially changes the point you want to make. We don't like this direction. We want you to go into another direction. We want you to make another point. Okay, here's where you can say, really, I had this point in mind. This is the significance I want to draw attention to. I don't really want to go in this other direction. So consider very carefully, are you willing to go in another direction? Are you willing to have your manuscript reworked so much so that it doesn't make the original point that you have in mind? Yes, you can withdraw your submission, and you can be very frank by saying that, very professional, very courteous. I'm sorry, this is not the direction I wish to take my manuscript. I have a very significant point to make here, but I am happy to write another manuscript with the points that you have made in the direction that you think best fits your journal. So yes, I have done that as well. I have said, no, I don't want to make that point. That's not my point. Here's my point, but I'd be happy to consider your suggestions and make another article. And they have said, that's fine. We have plenty of other manuscripts with the points we want to make, if that's not your point. And I said, thank you very much. And I will make the point I want to make. And then I made the point I want to make, and it went to another journal, and that was perfectly great. That was fine. So you just have to consider that, yes, withdrawing means they might not be happy with you, but you have to be happy with yourself. You have to live with yourself. Again, it's your intellectual property. So young scholars, this is your life. This is your life's work. It's got to be good enough so that you can live with yourself. And that's why withdrawing sometimes might be the best option. Might be painful, but it might be the best option. If you can review it, rework it to be revised and resubmitted, do it. If you can't live with it, then don't. Other questions from our fine members here, our fine webinar participants.
Then there's an ethical question for you, and I'm curious if this must have come up with your life and your career so far, but what would you do if you suspect there's been plagiarism or any type of ethical research practices when you are doing the review? Is that something that you should report right away? And if so, what are some of the red flags that you've had to act on?
You know, the publisher requires of the author an ethics statement saying that they have never lifted anybody else's work. Everything has been cited, fair use and fair mention. Now, you know what the biggest thing coming up this summer? I'm delving deeply into the seminars on AI. How does AI enhance my work or contribute to my work? And let me tell you, it's a minefield. I've been to 2 seminars already on how to detect AI plagiarism. Here's the thing, AI doesn't care if it plagiarizes. It has no feelings, it has no morals, it has no conscience. So it's up to the author to make sure. And the reviewer absolutely must tell the editor and the editorial board, look, I've seen this before and it hasn't been cited properly. Again, be constructive. It hasn't been cited properly, even though I know where it came from. See, now that just says to the author, you were careless, not that you were malicious. It's up to the editorial board to find malice. So yes, absolutely. If you find something that's not right, if you find something for plagiarism or cheating, or you tell the editorial board in the most constructive way possible that the author has neglected something, That's a very benign word. The author has neglected. Something has been misplaced. The author inadvertently, now it's the editorial board's job to go back and find malice aforethought. It's not the reviewer's job. You can point out the places, absolutely point out the places where something has gone wrong. So yes, you do have an ethical obligation to point out those areas that could use improvement in citation, using better paraphrasing, quotations, whether AI has been too much used, overused, and has, they see what I mean about making it sound so benign. Now it's called AI hallucinations. The hallucination of the AI has found a work that doesn't exist. Oh, that's so nice to say that. But what happens is they made up something, and it's the author's job to find out, why doesn't this work exist if it's cited by the AI? So yes, the reviewer does need, depending on how much feedback, if the editor just says, is it a go or no go, then it's not your job to go through every single thing. But if the editorial board wants a lot of feedback, then absolutely yes. So it's a really tough line to walk, but it's better to be absolutely honest, helpful, courteous, and honest than to say, oh, well, I'm sure the author didn't mean it that way. Just point that out.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. And I would say to the audience, we are going to be doing more of these webinars. So please let us know in the chat any other type of topics that you'd be interested in learning more about. We're happy to take that list and find amazing speakers like we did today with Dr. Coles. So final question today is really focused on early career scholars. So what final advice do you have to this audience in order for them to leverage their review experience and really build their academic credibility to improve their own writing?
I always say readers who read a lot are also better writers. Readers who read a lot have a better view of the entire field in which they are working. Once they recognize good authors, respected scholars in respected journals, in respected publishing houses, then they know how to work. They see formatting. Readers make better everything. So young scholars, read everything. Read everything you know from a scholar you respect, from a publishing house you know is reputable, from journals that you use repeatedly in your own work. Always read and always try to emulate, model. The journals will model what you are going to be like. It's good to have original research, and your interests, your ideas are always sparked by what you read. Reading makes better writing. Writing makes better research. Research makes better publications. So embark on that no matter what your stage of career is. Early scholars, do more. Later scholars, good. Help more. I'm at this field now. I'm at this stage now. I want to help you more. I've done what I'm going to do. I got it. But I want to help you do more. And so find respected scholars who can help you, who can facilitate to do more. Read more, write more, research more, and that will get you more publishing.
Such great advice. And it is so true. The more I read, the better I write, and also the better I speak. You really do improve your vocabulary in that way. So thank you again, Dr.
My
Philippe
pleasure.
Coles. Such a valuable presentation. Thank you for those who attended and participated actively. Up on the screen now, I have a link to our website. You can learn more about Gari there. The
I will
recording.
stop sharing. Let me stop sharing so you can see. I can only see there we go. I've stopped sharing now.
Perfect. The recording is already available on YouTube, so you can go back and rewatch this now if you came in late. I saw people trickling in throughout, so you can go back and see what you missed at the beginning. We are going to be emailing out a certificate of attendance to everyone who registered and attended. We will also include Dr. Cole's slides in that because I know there was a lot of requests. So please stay connected with us on LinkedIn. We look forward to seeing you at future GARI events. And until then, stay curious, keep collaborating, and continue innovating. Thank you. And goodbye,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you.